There I am. Cool. Okay. I am live on YouTube, and I am test driving this new software. So I am not going to guarantee that everything is going to be perfect, but I'm going to try my best, and let's give people a little while to show up. I hope somebody shows up. That would be awesome. I do believe there is a live chat over on the YouTube channel that I am going to enable. It says say something. I'm going to say something. Quite literally, something. There. Okay. Live chat, I hope works. It works for me. I hope it works for you, if anybody's listening. And if nobody listens, I guess I'll just make a video. And that's okay too. Let me see if it says if anyone's watching. Is anybody watching? Charles Kennedy. Charles Kennedy is watching. Yay, Charles, it's nice to see you. There's Dennis Goddard. Looking great. Sounds great. Thank you very much. That is useful feedback from a tech support point of view. Now, there is a little bit of lag between when I see myself and then hear myself. Hi, NC, checking in. Thank you. Innovation. Awesome. So I'm going to try to monitor the chat sort of closely. But I'm going to tell my story about living in Haiti. And I would love to have feedback and questions. Oh, Bill Lowry, thank you so much for inviting the universe. I saw all those invites you sent. Really, really appreciate it. That was really, really nice of you to do that. He's from North Carolina, so he's my neighbor. Awesome. Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started. Yay, it works. I'm so excited. I've been looking for a platform like this for a long time. I've tried a few, and a lot of them have their drawbacks and their points of failure, but hopefully this will work awesome, and this will be the new way that people communicate. Maybe. Anyway, so what I wanted to talk about tonight is how living in a third world country, i.e. Haiti, for part of my childhood made me a libertarian. It was before I even knew what the word libertarian meant or had even heard of such a thing. I moved to Haiti with my family when I was 11 years old. This was right after 5th grade for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. I lived in the country of Haiti. My father was a medical missionary. He's a general, well, he's retired now, but he was a general surgeon with a heart for adventure, and my dad is awesome. He's a rock star. He has actually been all over the world on shorter term mission trips. He's been to Afghanistan. He's been to Papua New Guinea. He went to Afghanistan in 2002. 2002, Afghanistan, which is when I started getting gray hair, right? So yeah, my parents have been all over, and actually Haiti wasn't my first experience in a third world country. They took us to Zaire, which is now the Republic of Congo in Africa, when I was 5. We spent a month there for Christmas, so another missionary surgeon could have a furlough in the United States with their family. So yeah, I've sort of been exposed to third world issues really all my life. But Haiti was the first time that I actually lived there full time, you know, day in, day out, not as like some kind of a tourist, but actually living there for 3 years, very formative years. And I'm told that I didn't miss out on much. Middle school in the United States is not that great, so I hear. Anyway, so this is not going to be like some kind of a lecture on the political economy of the country of Haiti and Haitian history, because Frankly, there's people out there, maybe even people that will watch this after the fact, that know more about that than I do. This is just my observations as a 11-year-old in this country during a time of revolution. They were actually in revolution. When we went to visit there the first time, we went for like a month visit just to make sure that this was what we wanted to do. The Duvaliers were firmly in power. Everything was very orderly. Everyone was afraid of the Tonton Macoute, which is like this Duvalier regime secret service. There was a real thing, network of spies and just bad guys that would rough you up if you ran afoul of anything. But anyway, everything was very clean under a dictatorship. They didn't have any trains, but the trains ran on time, so to speak. But everyone agreed that they were brutal, corrupt, and very power hungry. And when we went back, if this would have been 86 to 89 or 90 that I was there. The Duvaliers had just been overthrown when we went back for my 6th grade year, and the country was literally in revolution, and it never really stopped being in revolution. I mean, up until, I don't even know what's going on there right now, but it was literally in the throes of revolution. It was very unstable, and Haiti is the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. It shares an island with the Dominican Republic, and one interesting thing about the island of Hispaniola, which is what it's called, Haiti and the Dominican Republic, is when you fly over the border between those two countries, you can see the border just by deforestation, the deforestation that is happening in Haiti that is not happening in the Dominican Republic. And the reason for that is the people cut down the trees to cook their food because they don't have another source of fuel that's really viable for the impoverished people of Haiti to use. So they have cut down their beautiful, lush rainforest in order to eat, which is really, really sad. But the interesting thing that struck me as an 11-year-old was just thinking about these things. Why is it so much nicer in the Dominican Republic than it is in Haiti? And at that stage in my life, I was thinking a lot about, growing up and making it in the world. I was a little stressed out that I wouldn't be able to support myself, and what am I going to do when I grow up and my parents kick me out? All those issues were starting to occur to me. And I thought, well, I just, there's a safety net. I'll be back in the United States and there's a safety net, and worst comes to worst, I've got that going for me, And then I thought, well, what if I was a Haitian? What if I lived here in Haiti and there was no safety net? What about that? And those kinds of issues were running through my mind, and I started thinking, what makes an economy, a country, a society able to produce a safety net for people? If you have a human right, or if you deserve some sort of guaranteed sustenance from your people around you, from your community, why is it available in one place like the United States and it's not available in a place like Haiti when arguably they need it more? Why is it not there? And so I was thinking about these issues. And I would look around me at the culture of Haiti, and I started to figure out, it's just some clues as to why they were so impoverished and why they perpetually sort of stayed that way. Haiti at the time had a few factories, a few industries going on. They made baseballs. They made Care Bears. There was a Care Bear factory, and some other things like that. They manufactured things. They had sweatshops, right? And in my 8th grade year, I actually lived in Port-au-Prince, away from my parents. They lived in a little town in the middle of nowhere called Bonfin, and it was literally 3 hours in a 4x4, like a 4-wheel drive Jeep, to get out there, or a helicopter. It was very remote, and there was a hospital up there that did excellent surgical work, and that's where my dad worked. So yeah, I'm very proud of the work he did. That's another show in itself, the amazing cases that he encountered in remote Haiti. Anyway, where was my train of thought? Haitian culture, largely subsistence farming. If you weren't in Port-au-Prince and had a factory job, you were in the countryside and you had a little plot of land and you were growing whatever you can, and trading the surplus for whatever your neighbor has that you haven't grown. So subsistence farming, which is, I mean, it's a terrible way to live, really. You're at the mercy of nature. You're at the mercy of, pests, theft. Your crops can easily be eaten, stolen, whatever. It's a very sort of desperate, grinding way to live. It's not great. But what prevents them from expanding and developing wealth? I posted a quote on Facebook about poverty being the natural state of humanity, and I really saw that firsthand in Haiti. That's the natural state. That's where we began as humankind, and they're still there. And the miracle really is, why isn't everybody poor? What is it about growing wealth and becoming not poor that is so that's interesting, that should be copied, that should be preserved and spread? And it really is property rights. In Haiti, I saw there's a lot of problem with property rights. What? Okay, Michael is here looking at me. I think maybe I'm rambling too much. I don't know. Maybe he has a question. Okay. So in Haiti, it's very difficult to register your property and prove that you own it. You sort of have it just by common knowledge and the best that you can defend it. The Red Cross learned this the hard way when they sent, I think 6 million or billion, like an insane amount of money down to Haiti after the earthquakes, and tried to build affordable housing to replace what was destroyed in the earthquake. And they couldn't do it because there's no deed of records down there. There's no way to reliably register what you own. And so because Washington, D.C. doesn't understand this, they had a really tough time, this NGO, actually building something that they didn't have the property rights to. So a bunch of money was wasted because of this disconnect. So those kinds of issues. Also, Haiti has really 3 religions: the Voodoo religion, the Roman Catholic religion, and there's a lot of Baptists down there. In that order, almost everybody has some Voodoo influence. They say, the joke goes, Haiti is 95% Catholic, 5% Baptist, and 100% Voodoo. And in the Voodoo religion, if something bad happens to you, say your son dies, or some terrible tragedy befalls you, it is because the Voodoo gods are upset with you, and you have to make a sacrifice. So you burn down your crops to appease the Haitian gods. So that kind of belief system is not conducive to building wealth. I don't know everything about Voodoo, but that kind of made an impression on me, like, okay, we've got a little hint, a little clue of what's going on there. And just the whole idea of how can you really invest and build and expand if you're not secure in what you already have, when it can easily be stolen by jealous neighbors or whatever. So the government, once you get outside the reach of the Duvalier regime and the strong government of Port-au-Prince, whatever, government becomes very, very weak and ineffective and very corrupt. And in the countryside where we were, pretty much non-existent, just didn't exist. So there was no way to really enforce your property rights other than just fighting, or I don't know how. So that's a big stumbling block. If you're not secure in what you're investing in, there's little incentive to build. And back to the sweatshops in Port-au-Prince, the same thing. Those if you subsistence farming is terrible, but working in a sweatshop is a step up. It's a steady paycheck, it's steady work, it's it's out of the elements, and the best cure for a negative the negative conditions of one sweatshop is a competing sweatshop across the street. In other words, if they can provide better conditions and better pay, then they compete for the same labor pool, and then the other sweatshop has to compete to get their labor back. And you get enough sweatshops, everyone's condition is improved because everyone is competing for the same labor, right? So sweatshops, I don't care what anyone says, they're a good thing. They were a great thing in Haiti, and anyone who had jobs in those sweatshops was happy to have them. Trust me. And I remember the school that I was in Port-au-Prince. At lunchtime, there were these Haitian ladies that would come visit us, like, through the gates and try to sell us the seconds, like the cast-off Care Bears that were factory rejects. They would that was their livelihood. They would sell us the rejects. So that was cool. But little by little, as the political condition deteriorated, I think Aristide was pretty much the worst thing that ever happened to Haiti. Aristide's philosophy was equality. That sounds great, right? Equality, fairness. But this can be very, very, very bad if, as he said, and if people accept that, if your neighbor has more than you, that's not fair and that's not equal, so equalize it and take it, And that was extremely, extremely damaging for the Haitian economy, because Haiti has basically three classes: the very, very poor and the very, very rich, the merchants, the factory owners, and the traders. And then the middle class would be like the missionary class, like I was and my family was, and a lot of my friends were, just sort of in the middle. So it became very dangerous for the merchant class to be there, because Aristide sold this philosophy and people were buying it, that a very class warfare kind of mindset, that if somebody has more than you do, take it. Which obviously hurt Haiti very badly, because the sweatshops went away. So all of those jobs went away. And where there were never Haitians starving in the street, I mean, it's a very poor country, but you never saw, bodies stacked up of Haitians starving in the street. After we left, it got so bad that Haitians were starving in the street. Terrible. So, I mean, yeah, when equality is your highest ideal, that can be one of the outcomes, and it's not good it's not good for anybody because, all of their economy, as bad as it was, it just got decimated. Let's see, what else did I want to talk about? I have a lot of stories about Haiti and my time there, and a lot of observations. But just that's the main thing is I saw up front and personal that if you don't have security in your property rights, there is no wealth created. You're not going to create any wealth and expand and create prosperity if you're just going to lose it all. If you yourself can't benefit from it, if it's going to be stolen, destroyed by whatever forces, then it's just not going to happen, and you're going to remain in poverty. So RSD did a very good job of chasing off wealth and prosperity from Haiti, just simply by not respecting property rights. That's the building block of everything.
Capital flight.
Yeah, capital flight.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
All those factories, those sweatshops with all their machines, they were owned by the evil capitalists.
Evil capitalists.
Who imported all the tools, the equipment. They built the buildings. They invested a lot of money to bring that capital to where the labor costs were low. And they immediately raised the productivity of those laborers by probably a factor of 100, right? Yeah. And then Aristide comes along, mm-hmm. and that you see this over and over and over in every socialist utopia, whether it's Robert Mugabe in Zimbabwe, or whether it's Hugo Chavez and now his follower.
Yeah, the thing is, politically, class warfare sells, and it's so dangerous.
When you nationalize, or you threaten to nationalize, or not even threaten to nationalize, just destroy the output, the ability to earn a return on capital, whether it's through capital gains taxes or whatever tax structure that you want to put in place, or you outright nationalize industries and give them to your cronies like Mugabe did or Chavez did, you're taking away the ability of the capitalist to earn a return on his capital. And if he's smart and fast enough, he's going to pack up all of his equipment and all of his managers, and he's going to sail away with the capital that results in the productivity of the people. And that is exactly what happened in Haiti.
Yeah.
The economy collapsed. It was really terrible. And when I talk to people, and there are people out there all the time that, regardless of how many countries have literally imploded due to socialism, they find a way to never have heard of any of this before. Regardless of how many times this happens, you will always find people that want single-payer health care, or they want to nationalize the oil industry, or they want something that is going to essentially cause capital flight. And we have this problem. We have the highest corporate tax rate in the world. And it's never enough for these people. It's like they're enchained with this sort of first level thinking. They can't follow the chains of logic that would say, well, if you destroy the ability of the evil capitalist to make money, he's just going to take his evil capital somewhere else where he can. And then what are you going to do? Mm-hmm. Are you going to get back to the earth? Are you going to live like your ancestors did.
Yeah, people will have to. They will have
Yeah,
no
it's
other
called
choice.
subsistence farming, and it is brutal.
Yeah.
And you will probably turn to prostitution. It's really bad. The alternatives.
Yeah, Haiti is also, I think, the AIDS capital of the Western Hemisphere.
Oh yes.
Yeah. So yeah, people are desperate down there. I haven't been down there in a long time. I loved my time down there, but I would be terrified to go back because it is so bad that you get carjacked at a stoplight if you stop. You're very I don't know about very likely, but I've heard stories where, like, I was never afraid of stuff like that when I was down there, but now I would be terrified, and it's so sad because I would love to take my boys down there and have them experience a little bit of the culture that I experience, and the food is to die for. I love Haitian food; it's my favorite. But it's hard to find a Haitian restaurant. You have to go to Miami. But
Yeah. Whenever I talk about someone who is a socialist.
Hi, Alan Piscatello.
Hey, Alan. What people don't realize what socialism means. It's state ownership of the means of production, and whether that's outright ownership because they've expropriated it or something, or they've monopolized it decades or even centuries ago, or even whether it's just effective ownership through burdensome regulation that dictates what you can and cannot do with your property. That's essentially the same thing. What I tell them is what you're trying to do is Haitianize our economy. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to Haitianize the economy. You're trying to drive out the capitalists, the capital owners.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to take their capital with them, and along with it goes the productivity of U.S. workers, and along with that goes the living standards of U.S. workers. People lament left and right how, we don't manufacture anything anymore. That's wrong. But to the extent that we don't manufacture as much as we otherwise would, it's because we have incredibly burdensome regulations. Think about that it's cheaper for a company to have a product made on the other side of the world
and then shipped back
and shipped here. It's cheaper to do that than to comply with our insane level of regulation. Everybody, we talk about, well, what's the cost of government, and people bandy about these numbers that, when you add up the federal and the state and the local spending, it's like 40% of GDP. And I'm like, but you're not counting the portion of GDP that has been destroyed by regulation. You never even see that. The cost of compliance is trillions of dollars, and when you add that in, it's well over 50% of our GDP is just lit on fire every year.
Yeah.
Every year.
Into a giant suck hole.
And there are real world effects that no one sees. It's the seen versus the unseen, right? So people don't see the Jetsons world that we would be living in if we were not Haitianizing our economy to the extent that we already are. No, instead, they want to completely Haitianize it so that we've deforested our land to cook rats because we can't afford to import energy. That's the problem in Haiti.
Yeah, that's the worst thing is how they have burned up all of their trees. And there's a lot of people down there trying to reforest and plant trees and grow it back, but it's so sad. Poverty is the worst thing you can do to your climate. Poverty, because they basically have a choice of, eating or chopping down trees.
Yeah, you'll hear this argument. I've heard this argument before, that the reason that the Dominican Republic has lush green forests is because the government of the Dominican Republic has simply made it illegal to cut trees down. Whereas in Haiti, they're apparently too stupid to make it illegal to cut trees down. I'm like, no.
In Haiti, they're desperate. And there's a reason they're desperate.
There's a reason they're desperate. In the Dominican Republic, they have secure enough property rights. They actually have foreign investment. They have factories. They have businesses. They have an economy that produces enough that they can import energy, so they don't have to cut down all the trees in the forest so that they can cook.
And I don't know that the Dominican Republic is that well off, but I just know that the contrast
it's light years better than Haiti
was tremendous, and it was impressed upon me that this is the same island, this is the same group of natural resources, and the only difference is there's a border, and there's a government over here, and there's a government over here. And, well, actually, there is another difference. I mean, there's French.
Yes. There's
the French slaves on this side of the island, and then there's the Spanish slaves on that side of the island. So, I mean, they come from, a different, that.
But
it's about government corruption and the tremendous difference, and it just impressed upon me how important that really can be. It's not just natural resources, it's the people at your head of state and how they govern and how they protect capital so that it can be expanded upon or beat down and destroyed. And I saw it continually destroyed in Haiti in spite best efforts. And I would just say this one thing, how I discovered that I was a libertarian, because I didn't know at the time what a libertarian was. I didn't even hear the word until high school. Well, I asked a friend of mine, because I thought I was a Republican. A lot of people would still say I'm a Republican. But I thought I was always a Republican. And my friend said, when I asked him, what political party he is, he said he's a libertarian. And I'm like, oh, well, what's that? He said, well, just believe in less government and less taxes and more freedom. I'm like, oh, that's what I am. So, and I always knew that was what I was since observing everything in Haiti. But thank you for crystallizing that and
sure.
And making it sound very academic.
Well, it's really not hard to understand. It's you look at these places like Zimbabwe, which at one point was like the breadbasket of Africa. They have 10-foot thick of the richest volcanic topsoil on the planet.
And thank goodness they have gold, because that's how some people get by in the midst of hyperinflation.
And I'm not going to talk about the history of colonialism and whether it was right that these, if you tried to go back and check the chain of title back for hundreds of years, whether or not it was right that these white farmers had these farms. The point was, they had the farms. For a long time they were secure in the knowledge of their property rights. They invested heavily in them. They had a tremendous amount of equipment. They had over the course of many decades had learned the local knowledge of their farms and how to work them and what was required and when to plant and when to harvest and how much water was required and what kind of pests they got, and on and on and on and on. And then they drove out the white farmers and nationalized those farms, and they all went to Mugabe's cronies, who had no idea whatsoever how to farm.
Or work ethic.
So rapidly, the place fell apart, and they're receiving, I think it was 4 years, they were receiving or requesting food aid. The breadbasket of Africa. Yeah. And 4 years later, after you have stuck it to the 1%, mm-hmm. you're in dire straits and you need food aid. The same thing happened in Venezuela. At one point, Venezuela was as rich as the United States on a per capita basis. Incredibly rich.
Not even that long
resources.
ago. Not in recent memory for a lot of these people who are now starving, which is so painful to think about.
And incredibly rich oil reserves. I think they're the largest proven oil reserves in the world. Mm-hmm. Unbelievably, again, rich climate, rich land, enormous natural resources, mineral resources, but you stick it to the 1%, and a few years later, and you're in hyperinflation, and the economy has collapsed, and it's violent, and it's like one of my favorite little jokes that they tell to it's not a joke. Argument that people have for anarchists like myself is, well, if you like anarchy that much, why don't you go to Somalia? Ha 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 ha. Because Somalia is this perfect example of anarcho-capitalism because there's no government and it's everybody's free, and of course they're all running around with AK-47s in those people's minds shooting each other. But of course they don't remember that the reason that Somalia got the way that it did is because of its government, which exploded in a socialist supernova where they basically turned the entire capital stock into automatic weapons and destroyed the currency through hyperinflation. And the result of that is an absolute collapse of the economy, capital flight, radical decline in the standard of living of the people, because you've destroyed two super important things: property rights and the currency. There's the two most important things for the mm-hmm. stability and productivity of any society is security of property rights and knowledge that your currency is stable. And every one of these countries that descends into socialist hell, they destroy property rights and hyperinflate the currency.
But let me also say this to my friends who are just itching for revolution. I lived through a revolution, and just because you overthrow one bad, evil jerk doesn't mean things can't get worse, because they did in Haiti. I mean, everyone was super, super hopeful when they got rid of the Duvaliers. They were so glad to see them go.
Yeah, violent revolution
it's
doesn't work.
It's not all that great.
Doesn't work.
It's not. I remember...
I mean, we had one of those, and look what we have now.
I remember in Haiti, in Port-au-Prince, it was my older brother's, it was his prom night. They had banquet, which is their equivalent of prom. And he was going out in Port-au-Prince to get a tuxedo to rent for the night. And it was a strike. Like, the whole city was supposed to be on lockdown, but he wanted to get his tuxedo. And so we went down Delmont to see if we could get to this shop. And it was eerily quiet. Rue Delmont is like the main highway, and there was nobody on the road except an armored personnel carrier, a tank, coming at us from the other way. And my mom was with us, and she was freaking out. My brother David was driving. He's like, this is fun. So we played chicken with an armored personnel carrier. Yeah, that was Haiti. I have a lot of interesting stories. I remember outside of my bedroom window there was a blockade with, burning tires. This one time, all kinds of interesting stories. I literally lived through a revolution. I remember we were always in fear of being evacuated by the United States. I remember I was like 12, and my biggest concern was if they evacuated us and they came and swooped in and took us away by a helicopter, they weren't going to let us bring our dog with us. We would have to leave our dog Rusty behind. These are the concerns I had as a 12-year-old.
Third world problems.
Third world revolution problems. Anyway, yeah, and another interesting thing that I think is, I mean, I have all kinds of interesting stories, but I wanted to share this. Like when we were in Bonfim, in the middle of nowhere, 3 hours away from civilization by 4-wheel drive, this community out in the mountains of missionaries around this hospital. Of course, there's some culture shock, and we came as semi middle class Americans into Haiti, middle of nowhere, and the other missionaries there told us that we have to have a maid and a cook and a gardener. And I remember my mom was like, "Oh, well, we don't need all that. We don't need servants." And they're like, "No. These are very coveted positions in the community, and part of what you can do is provide jobs for these people. And so, that's sort of your duty. And if you don't do that, if you don't provide jobs for a few people, you will be seen as very selfish."
They will resent it. This is one of the things that.
No, I'm not done.
Oh, go ahead.
So we had a maid and a cook, and this cook, she was amazing. She made this banquet for us for lunch every day, like with complete with layer chocolate cake. I mean, she worked so hard, and we were only allowed to pay her like $1 a day because that was the going rate. And if you pay too much, then there's also resentment among the other Haitians. So like there's these strict rules. She worked so hard, and she became like a member of the family. The cook and the maid are supposed to eat their lunch like in a separate room from the family, but like we were not having that. Like, sorry, you're gonna eat at the table with us. And they felt so weird about it at first. But like we insisted, and we would practice our Haitian Creole with them, and they just became part of the family. And I mean, to sort of make ourselves feel better for the pittance we were allowed to pay them, we would give them like extra gifts to like pay their kids' school tuition and that kind of thing. But yeah, so interesting and so different from what I was used to as a normal American kid going to the mission field. So anyway, what were you going to say?
I was going to say that, you hear in America, it's very common amongst American churches that they get their kids and they send them on a mission trip. And some of these are better than others. But imagine that you're in a church and you're going to get 12 or 15 kids and you're going to send them to a desperately poor third world country with
this is a big pet peeve of mine.
With 65% unemployment of able-bodied men, and you go down there.
And you dig a well for them.
You dig a well for them.
Provide free labor, just what they needed. Come on, are you serious?
The only thing that they have is
labor.
A surfeit of unskilled labor, and you're going to go down there and dig a ditch, or even build a school or a hospital or something like that.
Yeah, and the missionaries down there, they sort of grit their teeth and smile because they have to put up with, these American kids. Basically on like ecotourism,
It's poverty tourism.
Yeah, poverty tourism. And it's good for the American kids to see another way of living. It's good for, but you got to understand who it's good for. It's good for the Americans. It's not good for the Haitians. Like I was very proud of what my father did there. He was providing medical care that they did not otherwise have access to. It just didn't exist, and if it wasn't for my father, a lot of people would have suffered and died. I'm very proud of what he did, but there's a lot of NGOs and people down there helping that are not really helping, and that's why I love the film Poverty Inc. so much. I saw that last 2 Freedom Fests ago at the Atlas Film Festival, and I just cried the whole time because Haiti is very strongly featured in that film, and It was very powerful, and it explains exactly what's wrong with the poverty industrial complex and people trying to help without really thinking about what's helping. What really spoke to me a lot was that people going down there and doing international adoptions. That just got me, because there was an American couple that went down there to adopt a Haitian baby, and you've got to watch this movie to get the whole story, but long story short, they realized that what they were actually doing was tearing families apart simply because the mother of the child they wanted to adopt just didn't have any economic means or opportunities to support her family, and if she did, she would have kept her family together. So what they did instead was they went down there and they opened a bead making factory.
A business.
And they taught women, and then they expanded to men.
A sweatshop.
Yeah, they opened it. But they're very nice, and they have fans and air conditioning. I saw it. But they make beads and they sell them, and they have the Americans figured out a way to get them access to, very elite American markets like Nordstrom's and stuff, and so they actually are able to keep families together rather than adopting them and breaking up families. And it's a great film. You got to see Poverty Inc.
So I just today saw.
We're looking at the chat. So if anyone has questions, please go ahead and ask. I see Eric Herrera, your question, but go ahead, Mike.
I just today saw there's an app that's being deployed in Africa that essentially allows African farmers in a sort of crowdsourced app way to document their property. This exact issue that Rachel was talking about, where it's very difficult to establish your ownership of land. There's a tool that's being deployed that is allowing people to do that on the ground, and essentially to it seems to me, to crowdsource that information, that documentation, so that people will be able to prove that they own their land. And then they would have access to, for example, credit based on their land and all of these other things. So my point is, if you want to help in a desperately poor part of the world, going there and digging ditches for them, or even building a school, unless you're like the supervisor, right? They don't have the technical know-how to go about building it. They have plenty of labor, and you're going to hire all the local laborers, right? And you're going to buy the all the materials you can locally.
Yeah, give these people jobs. They want to work. They want to earn money. They lack the opportunity.
Want dignity. They don't want
they don't want to be a beggar.
People have probably heard about it's the new buzzword. It's all over the news, the opioid crisis in the U.S. And if you look at opioid fatalities, overdose fatalities, starting in 2008 or 9, I think it was 2009, opioid fatalities in the U.S. they were like this, and then they just went up, and they've gone up and up and up, and finally the last year that they have data for opioid overdose fatalities exceed gun homicides for the first time. And the reason I'm convinced that the reason for this,
I think it's hot shots,
is I think it has a lot to do with economics. I mean, we're told that you
think they're depressed? They're self-medicating?
But
yeah, I don't think they intend to kill themselves. I think
of course not. They don't intend to kill themselves.
It's because they're buying products on the black market that's untrustworthy, and so it's stuffed with toxic things, and like the dosage is unreliable, and so they accidentally.
My point is, none of that has really radically changed, to my knowledge, since 2009 that would cause this straight, almost vertical ramp in this problem. And what has changed has been the economics. And we're constantly told that the unemployment rate is super low, but if you actually look at the number of working age men in the workforce, it is at a multi-decade low, and it got slammed hard. And it's when people don't have a job that they can be productive in and provide for themselves and their families,
and when they have no hope,
it is really hard. It's like that study where you put a rat in a cage and you give him a bottle of water and a bottle of water laced with cocaine. He goes straight for the water with the cocaine. And this is the kind of study that they said, well, this stuff is super addictive. But, when you put the rat in like Rat Park with all his rat friends and lots of ratty things to do and explore, they hardly ever go for the highly addictive cocaine water. They don't touch the stuff. They go for regular water because they have
I read that.
A rich social life. They have opportunities for their little rat lives. And I am convinced that it is the same thing with people. When you have desperate economic times that people fall in, that's when they turn to drugs. And my ultimate point is that when you're in a place with extreme poverty and
no hope,
70% unemployment, the thing that you can do is provide a job, a real job, a dignified job.
Hi, Juliet.
Where someone is actually doing work that they can be proud of and earning a wage that they know that they've earned. It's not a handout. You haven't dumped 500,000 pounds of old T-shirts on them and destroyed the local clothing manufacturers, or dumped our subsidized agricultural surplus on them and driven all the local farmers out of business.
There was this one story on Poverty Inc. that was really poignant to me about a church in the United States that started supplying a community with free eggs. And they put the chicken farmer there out of business because you can't compete with free. Mm-hmm. So their native egg production went away. And then the church decided all of a sudden to stop sending eggs. That's the problem with charity. Like turning economies into beggars and giving them things. Every time you give a pair of shoes like Tom's does, yay, yeah, some kid has a pair of shoes, but then you've put the cobbler out of business, mm-hmm. And then, all of a sudden Tom's decides, to make changes, and then the community is left without. But I want to go back to Eric Herrera's question. He asked the question, do the people there in Haiti understand liberty and freedom? I don't know. I don't know that they even really think about this because they're too busy thinking about, where their next meal is coming from. And they're also highly illiterate. For elections in Haiti, you have to have a picture of the candidates, and then you make your mark. There's very little literacy. I will say that I think if you can possibly take a mission trip and help, teach people how to read, that's probably not bad. Although there are teachers that can do that kind of thing. But anytime you put someone who's there in the economy out of work, I mean, you got to really think about these things to know if you're really helping or not. That's why I like Kiva so much. Kiva is my charity of choice because it's actually lending. It's microfinance. You lend $25 at a time to, some farmer in Peru that wants to expand his flock of cattle or something. Herd. But anyway, I like the concept of Kiva quite a lot.
I will say
Alan Piscatella is giving a shout out to Chris Anade's Twitter on opioids. And Juliet and Reno is saying, and all the big opium business supported by our troops in Afghanistan doesn't hurt. Yeah.
True.
That's disgusting, isn't it? Every time I hear about that, they're fighting for God and country. No, they're fighting for opium and oil.
I will say this about the Haitian people. I didn't grow up in Haiti like Rachel did for any length of time. I've never been to Haiti, but I've met some Haitian people, and all of the Haitian people that I've met that have gotten out of Haiti and into the United States are awesome. They have, to a man or woman, they are fantastic. They work hard. Almost all of them that I've met are actually entrepreneurs. There's up in the mountains of North Carolina, there's a Haitian couple that own a bed and breakfast up there, which I highly recommended. Do you remember what the name of that the place is?
Like the Taylor House Inn, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome.
Highly recommended. Western North Carolina.
And
go stay. They're awesome.
Jamila is very correctly pointing out. Thank you for this, Jamila. This is very correct. I can't believe I didn't think about this. Haitian people may not be schooled. However, these are the only people in the history of the transatlantic slave trade who overthrew their oppressors and freed themselves. That is so true. That is such a good point. The idea of freedom is as heir to the Haitian person. They get it. But at the same time, Jamila, why the Duvaliers? How did that happen? If what you're saying is correct, and I want to believe it is, how did that happen? But they overthrew the Duvaliers as well, but then things got worse. The payments to the French government and the fact that they're indebted so deeply is about poor international rule. It's poor governance. That's to be sure. Yeah.
But again,
Chris Arnade, and he links to it. Okay, just following chat.
The Haitian people that I've met are very entrepreneurial when they can get out of Haiti, and that brings me to another point to touch on, since we're all libertarians here or thereabouts, which is immigration. And I am an open borders kind of a guy. I'm a no borders kind of a guy. But Brian Kaplan, who is awesome, has made this point that if there's one thing in the world that is shackling the global economy from a quantum leap increase in productivity, it is borders and immigration laws in country. If you take someone from Haiti who is desperately poor and you don't teach them anything, nothing whatsoever, and you take that person and you plop them down in the United States, their productivity goes up by a factor of 40.
They have a chance.
That's if they don't speak English, right? No skills whatsoever. You plop them down in the United States, their productivity goes up by a factor of 40. That's true all over the world. If we just got rid of immigration restrictions and let labor flow from where it is underutilized to where it is underrepresented, the economy of the world would explode in a way that's probably larger than the increase that we saw when women finally entered the workforce, right? We had this long period where, the women stayed home, they were very proper and didn't work, and that was just a Western cultural thing. And then during World War II, when the men were all off killing each other, the women had to go into factories and make the bombs and the airplanes so the men could all kill each other. And then when the men came home, the ladies, they kind of liked the job thing. So the workforce expanded significantly, and there was a huge GDP upswing that was associated with that. And just imagine if people and capital, because that's the other thing, if people can move from where their labor is unproductive to where it will be productive, or people can freely move capital to where the labor costs are low and not fear that it will be nationalized, then people suddenly become hugely more productive, and consumer goods get cheaper for all of the rest of us. It's win-win-win for everybody, which of course is why it will never happen.
Yeah.
Because quite frankly, there's the way that government always works in every single case is that policies that would benefit the politically dispersed public can never compete with policies that will benefit politically concentrated special interest groups, because they have a huge incentive to expend a tiny bit of effort lobbying to leverage politicians, whereas the flip side is the benefits that from policy that might benefit everyone, any individual person in the public. They have a pretty small incentive to expend a tremendous amount of time and energy trying to leverage the politician. So in general, governments are always going to be very responsive to politically connected special interest groups, and we're always going to have oligarchy as long as we have the idea that we can have this tiny cabal of people making up laws and passing out favors to their buddies.
I don't know.
It's just ridiculous.
Mike is an anarchist. I'm a minarchist, and I feel like some of my observations from out in the countryside of Haiti are also part of why I'm a minarchist, because some government would have been helpful, but obviously in Port-au-Prince it was too much. So, I mean, even just between the countryside and the city, you see that there needs to be a balance, and I think it's a constant struggle about finding that balance. And Jamila brings up the other good. Jamila must know. She knows a lot about Haitian history. I told you there was people that know more about this than I do, even living there. I will not be an anarchist eventually. I've been through and back. She points out that the Duvaliers were propped up by Mother Teresa in the Catholic Church, and that is also true. I heard that, and it reminded me of excellent book Overthrow by Stephen Kinzer about 13 governments the United States overthrew, and just how brutal dictators come to power is not always by the will of the people that they rule over, but by outside forces that are interested in exploiting natural resources, etc., of said country. And
I was just posting about Hawaii yesterday.
Hawaii is one. Of course, Iraq, and he details, I think, Honduras and Guatemala. And
there's so many.
13 he chronicles in this book, which is an excellent read. Stephen Kinzer is my hero. He's very good. Hitchens called Mother Teresa the Armenian whore. Yeah, I've read some horrible things about her hospitals in India, where she took the Beatitudes a little too literally about how blessed it is to be in pain and suffer, and she basically turned that into worship of pain and suffering, and her hospitals reflected that, which is horrible. You're supposed to alleviate suffering where you can, rather than worship it.
Her apologists will argue you vigorously, and I don't know enough on that topic to know one way or another, but yeah, certainly propping up Duvalier was not a nice thing.
Yeah.
Not that Aristide was an improvement.
No.
Because he wasn't.
No.
He was much worse.
Okay, well, I think I'm going to leave it there unless anyone has any further questions. We still got 7 people watching. This is being recorded on July the 5th, so happy Independence Day. Happy Brexit 1776 to all of you watching. Hope you had a great July 4th. We did. We did fireworks in our driveway, and our beagle insisted that we'd all been shot. He was very terrified, as were a lot of dogs. All right, I'm just waiting for the...
He's fine.
He's fine. He wouldn't take his happy pills.
No.
I have happy pills for him, and he didn't want them. All right. Well, I don't see anything else happening in chat, so I'm going to leave it there. Oh, thank you for joining me, Juliet. It's nice to see you all. I was thinking I might do like a live chat like this, maybe on a weekly basis. I was thinking the next one I might do on homeschooling and public schooling and why I'm doing both and what that means. So I think that'll be my next topic if anyone wants to keep an eye out for that. Cheers. Cheers, Eric.
Cheers.
All right.
Clink.
Clink. All right. See you all later. Thank you for joining. Bye.
Bye.